You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're talking about the American horror film Us, which was written, produced, and directed by Jordan Peele, released March 22nd, 2019.
Ooh.
Such a good one. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this one since we covered Little Monsters last season, and I was all up in my Lupita Nyong'o fan moment, and I was like, we got to do Us, and so of course it's going to be one of the first ones we do coming back this season.
I know, and you know what, listeners? Pake wants us to negate all of our future monster movies and just cover whatever Lupita Nyong'o has been in. I put a stop to it, though.
I think everybody would be into that. It just became a Lupita Nyong'o fan cast, right? Just cover her.
I'm not sure about that. That's really different.
Gonna have to start that one on the side.
Okay.
Now that Daphne's not listening, anybody else out there, just hit me up, slide into the DMs, and find a co-host for the Lupita Nyong'o fan cast. All right, cool, thanks.
Yeah, no. In all your spare time.
Right, exactly. Then all the time I have for another podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure, Peg. Add that to the list of things that you have to do. Yeah, no,
oh,
I
God.
don't.
I'm already stressed out. I'm already about to start crying thinking about it now.
No, we can't have that happen. Now, come on.
Don't start making me think about what I have to do, because then there it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I'm hanging on a thread. I'm on the edge here. No.
You know what's funny is we're recording this right after we got back from Fandemic.
Yes. Yeah, we, again, the weird time, future past way that we record things and stack them up and then release them later. So for you listening to this, Fandemic was a long time ago. But
for us,
we just got back from it, which, to those of you listeners who were there and said hi and hung out with us, you know who you are, and I really appreciate it. That was super awesome to see some of you again, some of you for the first time. It was really fun. It was really cool.
It was so great. And for anyone who is interested, these will have been posted long before this podcast is. Pake did some panels at Fandemic, and I'm going to be sharing them on our social media so you guys can check them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was my first convention. I made it through okay. I think I would go to another one. We'll see. But we should get back on task now and talk a little bit about Us, which is a movie that I loved when I saw it. I think Jordan Peele is brilliant. I love that he's bringing a different perspective to movies. I think that between him and John Krasinski, they both have brought us such fantastic ideas and films, and I just can't wait to see more.
Yeah, which, again, maybe there's more info about this out now as you're hearing this, but from where I'm sitting in the space-time continuum, there's not much. I forgot to ask her about it over the weekend at Fandemic, but Kaylee Fleming is going to be in a new project that is being helmed by Krasinski. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm excited to see what that will be.
Yeah, I'm on board for whatever he or Jordan Peele do, because they haven't let me down yet. And I'm just super stoked for whatever they bring to the screen. So with that, I'm going to do what I do and bring a little behind the scenes information. This film, Us, was filmed on location in Santa Cruz, California. My cousin lives there.
Santa Cruz.
With some parts being filmed in Los Angeles and Pasadena. This is the second film from popular comedian Jordan Peele, which we've talked about. The third, called Nope, is coming out in July of this year. Based on what I've seen from the trailers, we will cover it on this podcast. It's super strange.
Nice.
The idea of the tethered living underground was something that Jordan Peele thought of when he was a teenager riding the train home from work. The movie was scored by Michael Abels, who also did Get Out, and our friends at Industrial Light and Magic did the special effects. Budget for us was $20 million. It grossed $255.2 million. It was 116 minutes long. Pake, give us a synopsis.
All right. The spoiler-free synopsis really doesn't give too much away. Is a family's serene beach vacation turns to chaos when their doppelgangers appear and begin to terrorize them.
Ooh, creepy.
And yes, and I will give a forewarning here now. I left that synopsis a little spoiler-free, kept it vague enough, because this is another one of those movies, just like when we covered Last Night in Soho last season. This is one of those movies with a huge twist, a huge thing that just, you got to watch it for it to pay off. So hopefully if you're listening to this podcast, you have watched the movie. I know there are some people out there who listen to us cover something first and then go back and watch it for the first time. You do you, but I am warning you that this movie really does need to be, seen, and you got to experience it and that twist and everything for yourself. I really feel the same way that I gave this with Soho. So I'm giving you that warning now, because when we start talking about it in just a second, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the big twists and reveals right at the beginning, because we're going to talk about them, so we might as well get them out the way. So I hope that before we do that, you have watched this.
All right. I'm glad that you've laid it out there and that you're going to reveal it all right at the start, so that we don't have to worry about tiptoeing around the obvious. Because
trying to break the whole movie down without talking about that big reveal before we get to it later is just going to make everything real weird. So we're going to have to spill it out so that way we can just jump around.
All right. Yes, jump up, and get down. I don't know why I just said that. And I'm cutting it out.
No, never.
I'm just in that, I don't know.
I'm pasting it back in. Not that I have access to it, but I'm mentally doing it.
Sure. I think I'm just still riding the high from being at Vandemic, so I'm in a really fun mood. Plus, we're recording this at a time that we don't normally record the podcast, so
yeah,
we'll see how it goes. Maybe the late night recording is even more fun than the early evening recording, but this is what works for us. We both have busy schedules and things that we're doing, so we have to fit things in sometimes.
Yeah. Could have driven within the next, after next week, I'll have driven back and forth to Dallas 4 or 5 times within the span of a month.
Yes. And you had a long road trip.
Yep.
You have been
Throw
really
that in
busy.
the middle of it too.
It's kind of funny. You told me that you think the next 2 months after that, you're going to take a break and just kind of veg.
Yeah. I think we've got some plans in May, and then I'll probably do a little bit of that. And then honestly, probably for the rest of the year, not really plan on doing much, at least not any big things.
All right.
I need to veg out.
There's one really big thing I think that you're planning to do at the end of the year.
Exactly. Wait till that. But anyway, getting to the movie, we'll jump into it like we always do. And typically, we kind of break down character by character. This is one of those movies that everything is intertwined. There's so many different things going on, and it's kind of all the characters are together all the time for the most part.
Yes.
So we're just going to jump around, get to all our notes, however we get to them.
Yeah. This is going to be a good one. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So, fair warning, last warning. Right now is the part where you need to stop if you have not watched the movie and do not want the amazing, incredible Jordan Peele reveal to be given to you beforehand. All right.
Oh, no. Oh.
So now that people have been warned, once, twice, 3 times, a charm, You're on your own at this point.
Pake, I have to ask you, did you figure out the twist before it was revealed?
The first time I watched this movie? No, I did not.
I did figure it out.
No, it was a complete shock to me the first time. Of course, then rewatching it other times, Jordan Peele lays things out so well. I mean, there's foreshadowing every second of this movie. There's so many hints and so many clues. But if you're not looking for them, it's easy to miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're looking for them, like when I'm watching it for this and really taking notes, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty obvious. But it was cool. So what that is, obviously, is yes, we have these doppelgangers, the tethered, that live underneath the ground and have decided to revolt and come up and replace their humans that they are connected to. Of course, the big twist being that young Adelaide at the beginning, who sees her tethered doppelganger in the House of Mirrors, was replaced by that doppelganger. And of course, the Adelaide that we follow with her family throughout this whole movie was initially the tethered that stole and took the life, basically, from this other actual Adelaide. And so that's why she kind of knows what's going on the whole time.
Yeah. And it's real creepy because Red, who is the real Adelaide, tells a really gross, creepy story about how her life compares to Adelaide's. And that really affected me. It's like, oh my God, it's just, it's very intense. This movie is very intense. It doesn't hold back. Like anything Jordan Peele does, it doesn't hold back. It's always lays it out there. And there were little things throughout the movie that I'll get to in production notes that are very clever.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure I've got a few of those clever notes. I have not looked ahead in what you have. I'm always just waiting expectantly to see what you got. But I'm sure, because I wrote down a couple things, and then finally I got to the point where I just wrote down kind of under like extra notes, where I was like, Jordan Peele has several layers of reasoning why he uses themes and symbols. Like there's the number 11 and rabbits, and all these things are in the movie. And there's like, it would be a whole lot for us to dig into. And we don't have that kind of time on a podcast.
We don't.
So I do recommend searching it out. He has some very interesting thoughts and explanations floating out there on the internet.
Yeah.
So look at that. And, I wouldn't be able to list all the visual hints and references because they're everywhere. So it'd even fun after we talk about this, go back and watch the movie again, look for all of them. It's
breadcrumbs.
Cool.
There are breadcrumbs everywhere. There were a couple things about this movie before we jump into the character. I want to say that little Addie was wearing this Thriller t-shirt that her dad won for her. Okay. I have to admit, I was terrified of Michael Jackson's Thriller when I was a teenager. I was so scared. And then my mom rented The Making of Thriller, and we watched it. And after that, I watched every scary movie I could get my hands on.
That's cool.
So, and the other thing I have to say is I don't like scissors, and they're so prevalent in this movie that it just creeped me out even more. So, yeah.
The scissors being the weapon of choice of the tethered for the reason. It's all symbolism. Everything is symbolic, where it's literally their goal to sever and cut the ties.
Yeah.
Cut the tether between them and the humans living above ground. Yeah.
So deep. So much symbolism. Okay, Pake, let's get started.
All right. Yeah. So, of course, we talk about Adelaide, young Addie with her Thriller t-shirt. But, again, we see a little bit of what happens in Santa Cruz with her family. Seems like she just kind of wandered off and got lost for 15 minutes or so, and somehow that traumatized her so much that she completely forgot how to speak and how to do a lot of things. I wonder why that. It's almost like she's a completely different person. Wink, wink. So, yeah. So now, as an adult, her and her family, her husband and children, are heading back to, I guess it was her mother's place.
I think so, yeah. They were, for a nice, quiet, fun family vacation.
Mm-hmm. But as soon as her husband, Gabe, mentions going to Santa Cruz Beach, the boardwalk, specifically where all that happened, clearly that bothers her.
Yes.
It's yeah. It's where things went down.
Yeah, she doesn't. She definitely does not want to go back there.
Yeah, it's where we're left to believe the first time watching this movie that that's where she encountered this doppelganger of herself, and it traumatized her and scared her. While really, it's where she took the life. Like I say, took the life. It sounds like killed, but I mean literally. Stole and replaced in life. This person, and so going anywhere near there, she kind of feels that connection, that tether is still there. And she's afraid that, she'll be able to find me and pay me back for what I did.
Well, the doppelgangers did not have the easiest life. And we might as well talk about it. When Red takes Adelaide and pulls, basically takes her by the throat. And then, I don't know, does she faint? Somehow she drags her down into the depths of the dungeon.
I mean, she crushed her, windpipe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why when Red is speaking throughout this movie and she has that very, strained and gravelly voice, it's because, I mean, that never fully healed.
Yeah. And no one else in the underground talks.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk. She's the only one that can speak at all in any capacity. But she basically, the way she takes her and drags her down there and handcuffs her to the bed, and then smiles at her when she takes the t-shirt and puts it on and goes and takes her life. It's so disturbing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of those little hints, a lot of those little nods while they're at the beach, of course, that, again, I love looking at them on multiple rewatches of this movie and seeing, this girl being carried away by other people. They're just having fun, but Adelaide is watching this and thinking back to her dragging away the other little girl. And then, somebody comes up from under the sand and it freaks her out. We get the red Frisbee that comes between them. And that's like a little symbolism is it lands directly on the blue circle in this little towel of blue circles. It's this one thing that's like the others, but sticks out because it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the time of Hands Across America, which is a big part of this movie. If you look at things like the paper dolls that they're talking about and that Red is cutting out at the end of the movie. To me, the t-shirt that young Adelaide was wearing when she was taken down into the underground, it looks like paper dolls as people are stretched out across the front of it. Like Hands Across America, it was a fundraiser that raised $15 million for fighting hunger, homelessness, poverty. All of that money was donated to charities in the local areas, and it cost $10 to reserve your place in line. It's real creepy. I feel like I'm saying that many times, but this movie is so terrifying at times. But I feel like that if you look at the very beginning of the movie, young Adelaide is watching this commercial. If you look in the reflection of the TV, she's cutting out paper dolls.
Mm-hmm.
It's all, it's the symbolism of that is just, it's a little unsettling.
Oh yeah, for sure. So then, we see, again, knowing what happened, that's why the whole time at the beach, even when they're away from the beach, but they've been there, just Adelaide is terrified. Mm-hmm. There's a feeling of connection, being tethered. That's kind of the theme there to that tether, that double, and it's getting closer. The connection is real because we see, in the flashbacks when we get kind of the big reveal or whatever, but all of the tethered, all the doppelgangers are connected in the way like puppets where they're moving and doing the same things that their human counterparts are doing.
Yeah.
And so even though that connection isn't that strong that she was able to break out of it, obviously the doppelgangers still know where their human counterparts are. They still have a strong enough connection to where you can't really run from them. You can't hide from them. And she's feeling this pull. She can feel that now that we're here, she's getting closer.
Yeah.
She tells the story to Gabe, kind of, from the viewpoint of real Adelaide, she doesn't tell him that she grabbed her and switched places with her, but I saw this other little girl, and then something happened, yada, 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 skip over that part. One thing led to another, and now she's after me,
Yeah. Yeah. She talks about seeing another little girl who looks just like her. And it wasn't a reflection because Gabe actually says to her, well, you were in a house of mirrors, And she's like, no, she was real. And like you said, her whole life, she's felt like this person has been coming for her.
So we get the whole family on our driveway scene, which that's the first moment that really amps everything up in this movie. And I love it. Adelaide clearly is already terrified because she knows maybe not exactly what's happening, but she knows who it is. Yeah. And she knows why. Why? Yeah. Maybe not what she's planning to do, but why she's planning to do what she's doing. Yeah, she knows exactly what she did. And I do love Gabe in that moment trying to be tough guy dad. If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy. He
was really funny. I found his character funny, but not necessarily tough. Like, I didn't feel like I felt like he talked a big game, but I don't feel like he backed it up very well. Right. I feel like Adelaide was definitely the toughest out of them. Even the kids were pretty tough.
Yeah, Gabe was not ready for crazy, actually.
No.
Because Abraham starts making his way towards him, and then the kids skittered off to the side. The tethered kids. It's just the creepiest way. Zora sees Umbre climbing the tree outside. Abraham's banging on the front door. And then next to the back window by Jason is when Pluto makes his first little appearance.
Oh, man.
Which I just have to say, Pluto is my favorite. He's so cool. He's so creepy. It's part the mask, but also how he just like walks around on all fours like an animal, like a spider kind of crawling around.
Yeah.
And he's just a firebug, literally, he's just, all these little parts. I'm like, man, it's so cool. Evan Alex, the kid who played Jason and Pluto, had to have had a blast with that. Just being able to be the creepiest thing on screen, man.
It had to be fun, though, I think, for all the actors to get to play such polar opposites of their characters.
Yeah.
And getting to bring that to life. Especially for Lupita Nyong'o, because the differences between the two, Red and Adelaide were just so severe that it was pretty incredible to watch her and know it was the same person playing both roles. And in all the cases, like, it had to have been a fun movie to do.
Yeah.
I do think, though, one note that I took during all of this is that Abraham won the Battle of the Door. Mm-hmm. Took the bat, hitting Gabe in the leg. It just, creep factor, +10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that, because we see what happens with the Tyler family, where they're all just killed pretty quickly right away.
Yes.
But there's something about with this Wilson family that's not the case, is they sit them all down and kind of explain to them through story and through metaphor, like, what's going on and why they're doing this. And, they and then they want to play with them. They have Zora run off because Umbre wants to chase her.
Yeah.
And they have Pluto and Jason go play together. They're toying with them. And I think that's because this is much more personal for Red.
It is. It's very much like cat and mouse. Like, a cat loves to play with a mouse before it kills it. I think that's very close to what they're trying to do here. I found it really symbolic that Red had Adelaide handcuff herself to something, because that's exactly how the last time they saw each other, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because Red didn't just take young Adelaide down and leave her in a room. She handcuffed her to the bed so she couldn't get away.
Mm-hmm.
So she had plenty of time to get back up and go back out and live young Adelaide's life.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool, too, when they're sitting face to face and Jason is just like, it's us. Like, it's us. Realizing that they're, like, looking in mirrors and seeing these alternate versions of themselves.
Yeah. So it's really cool. Yeah. Of course, yeah, Lupita Nyong'o, incredible playing both parts. I think just mind-blowing how well she does. But I also love, I wish I didn't get the actor or actress that played Zora written down. I should have.
Shahadi Wright Joseph played Zora in Umbre.
Yeah. And
she has not been in a lot, but she did go on to be in another really creepy thing called Them. It's on Amazon, and it's about
Us and Them.
Us and Them. Yeah. It's about a black family who, during the Second Great Migration, this is according to Wikipedia, moves from North Carolina to an all-white neighborhood in L.A., and the family's idyllic home slowly transforms into an epicenter of evil forces.
I think I've heard of it. I need
yes.
to watch that.
I feel like I have to watch that. Like, it's got to be something that I would be interested in. So I'm going to check it out.
She does so well with balancing the kind of, young teenage girl who, like, just doesn't care about anything versus the just intense, wide-eyed, creepy Umbre who's just staring and grinning at everybody. And
oh my gosh,
that's got just that difference is so cool. Winston Duke, Gabe being the goofy, funny dad, and then Abraham just being this powerful, overbearing, bearded, scary figure
who
does awesome.
Does whatever Red tells him to do.
Yeah,
she just lifts a hand and twists her wrist, and he, jumps into action.
Yeah, and then the Jason Pluto thing where, Jason's kind of the shy, reserved kid who's a little bit, mischievous and got his, pranks and his tricks. But then Pluto, I mean, it's just so creepy. Like I said, he's like a spider dog. He kind of skitters around, but he's got this dog-like kind of quality too, as he walks around on all fours, and he's like, sits, squats down next to Red and is rubbing on her leg and kind of has this growling, purring sound that he does while he sits. Yeah. And it's so creepy and it's so good. And as they're sitting in the closet together, and Jason has some kind of really strong connection with him where he's able to make him mirror his movements, which comes back in a big way later on.
And they seem to get along okay. Like, they're not...
Yeah.
There's not this, antagonistic situation between them. Right. They're kind of just sitting in the closet together, and Pluto lights a match.
Mm-hmm. So, but when he pulls that mask up off of his face to reveal the, burnt, scarred face of Jason, which is quite a shock for Jason to see. But yeah, I could just like geek out on like how cool the difference is between these two. And I understand, like, there we go. Talking about panels and conventions. This would be a cast that would be so much fun to talk about, just to talk with them about the difference of these roles and getting to play those. Yeah, I'd love it. I'm sure there's interviews and stuff out there. I'm gonna have to look because, man, it's so cool.
I know it is. I'm surprised, if you think about it, that we haven't covered this movie sooner. Mm-hmm. Because we both like it.
Yeah.
And we are always, trying to pull in a movie that would be fun for us to cover because we both really enjoy it. But this one, we just saved it for now. So it's definitely a season 4 movie.
Yeah. And I am going through my notes for Adelaide, so I have just a few little ones that will lead to the, talking about the big reveal, which we've already talked about, but leading to that. So I kind of skip over a lot of what happens to the Tyler family. We can talk about that at some point.
Yeah, we will.
But yeah, after all that kind of goes down, the family's sitting around the TV watching the news with the presumed or assumed dead one of the twins, the Tyler family, laying just on the coffee table in front of them. And that's when they all realize that it is a much bigger thing than they initially thought. It's organized. They're seeing the hands across America kind of starting to form right here in Santa Cruz, and seeing that, many people are being taken out by their tethered doppelgangers.
Yeah, so, and they don't even know, like, they don't even realize that the doppelgangers are doppelgangers.
Yeah, well,
like, the news doesn't really...
the news hadn't picked up on that.
The Wilsons know, because they've seen firsthand. The Tylers found out, at a time that... Yeah.
Which, there were some little hints right there about Adelaide in this moment. Of course, her talking about, because Gabe is telling her, let's just stay here. This is probably the safest place we can be. And how she's so matter-of-factly, no, there's a connection, they know, and they're going to find us. We can't hide from them.
Yep.
How would you know that? Like, the fact that she lays that out, and they don't question her on it, but
no,
there's a reason she knows that. And she even says, we have to go to Mexico. Out of all places, why'd she pick Mexico? What's not hands across
America?
North America, like...
She wants to get away, I loved her quote at that time where she just basically says, they look exactly like us, they think like us, they know where we are, we need to move and keep moving, they won't stop until they kill us or we kill them, they've been planning this, they have the upper hand, this is the time to run, not be sprinkling micro machines on the floor. Because Gabe had wanted to go all Home Alone on them.
Yeah, he said we could do like Home Alone, which, here's the kids today moment of that, where I love Jason and Zora. What are micro machines? What's Home Alone? Like, oh no.
I loved it. It was great. Yeah. I enjoyed it. There were funny moments in this. Like, it wasn't all scary. There were some funny moments.
Yes.
For sure.
Very, very, very funny moments. Like the whole family in the car. The scene that ends with Gabe. I would have actually preferred you use a curse word in this case.
Yeah, it's great.
It's good stuff. But man, my next Adelaide, I almost said quote, note. They rhyme. Same word, I guess. No, my next... Adelaide note that I really have is coming back all the way to the end. There's other things that happen, but her return to the mirror maze, of course, she's there really to find Jason, to find her son, but she knows she's going to have to face Red. She sees the tethered all lined up outside, including the first one we kind of saw earlier, the guy that's standing on the beach with blood dripping from his hand that Jason sees and draws is there as part of that line there, and it's the homeless guy with the Jeremiah 11:11 cardboard sign that they saw, who was dead on their way to the beach. So he's kind of the first, I think. He started the line, because I guess they never really spell it out, but their goal was to come out from underground, find their human counterpart, kill their human counterpart, and then they can join the line.
Yes.
Then they jump in the line. Everybody in time. Okay. So,
oh my goodness.
So he was kind of the first there. So, sees them, goes down there, fucks that creepy owl right up. We're not getting scared by that again.
Oh, she was taking no prisoners with that. That was fantastic. Give her a poker. That's all she needs. A fireplace poker, and let her go to town. She's just on it.
Yes, she follows that hidden compartment that's inside that leads to underground. Clearly, she knows exactly where she's going. She has used that compartment before.
Obviously.
Again, this is before it is revealed to us, but yeah, she knows where she's going. Down a giant escalator, which after our time at Pandemic, like we were talking about, that's the true horror. So many escalators.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man. So yeah, we learn then when she faces off with Red, which is interesting that we kind of get a lot of this from Red, who is not really a tethered to begin with.
Right.
But she knows all of this stuff anyway. She's learned, but the tethered were created by a shadowy they in quotations, the powers that be, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them,
Yes.
who knows? Where they're created as copies of the humans that have a connection to them, to where they could be used kind of in shady ways to manipulate things and influence things on the surface. She says, like puppets.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, they were wanting to use them the opposite way of what they ended up being, where the humans lived kind of freely and the tethered underground were mirroring them.
Yeah.
The original experiment was to see, can we control what people do above ground with what we do with these tethered?
Yeah. And it was the opposite. And though they were two separate bodies, their souls were intertwined, which is how I think they're able to know where they are, how the tethered are able to know where their doppelgangers are.
Yeah. But apparently this experiment didn't go the way that whoever they, quote unquote, wanted it, and it was abandoned, but all of the tethered were just left below, forced to be connected to their human counterparts, but with nowhere to go, and just to be unknown and forgotten underground. Red, I guess the original Red, if we want to call her that, who is the Adelaide we know. It gets confusing when you try to explain it once you kind of know what happens, but she somehow finds her way to the surface and encounters Adelaide, and then switches with her, which is not revealed in this speech that, we were getting, but we find it out kind of at the end. But the tethered realize that there was something special about Red, the new Red, and they looked at her to guide them in a plan to finally take the world, that the other versions of them had control of.
Yes. To escape the underground and take their rightful place in the hands across America.
Yes. Adelaide is able to kill Red, saves Jason, and the family drives away in the ambulance. And that's when we get the reveal through the flashbacks of what happened when young Adelaide went into the mirror maze. Talked about her throat being crushed, which is why the voice, and she kind of blends in down there because none of the other tethered speak.
Mm-hmm.
So tethered Adelaide had to learn to speak as a child, which is why there's that whole moment of her young life where she was kind of in therapy and they're trying to figure out what was going on. So yeah, that's kind of what we get. It's interesting, and I still haven't been able to find a really good answer to it as to why after Adelaide, quote unquote, whatever, is thinking back to this, and we see that flashback, that the way that Jason is looking at her as if he's clued into this as well. Mm-hmm. There's not really any reason why he should be.
Unless he overheard something when he was hiding in the closet. Yeah,
he was in that locker. And I've tried to think back to the conversation between them and if there's anything that was said that really would have given it away. And I still don't really click on it.
I think the speech that she gave in the classroom, which I think was talking about the souls and being special and it being a miracle, and about dancing.
Mm-hmm.
About her learning to dance. And she danced in front of, while Adelaide was dancing above, she was dancing below.
Yeah.
I found that interesting, but to me, something that was even more interesting is the way they shot their final fight, with interspersing the ballet dancing and the way the music fit and the slicing and the smacking and it was incredible to me. The choreography for that was just top notch.
Yeah. So, I'm going to go in, if you don't mind. This one, I'm just going to read it. It's kind of a little bit, I was wondering if I was going to save these till the end, but it feels like it fits now as I pulled an article talking about, the souls. So here's a look, not kind of an official look, because Jordan Peele has not actually said anything official about the ending of this movie and the, meaning and the themes. He likes it to be open to interpretation.
Of course.
so he hasn't really spoken on it. So this is one that I found that I really like. It's kind of an explanation, not just the ending, but kind of the overall plot. And this one comes from Collider.com, whoever wrote this one. But I like it a lot. So I'm just going to read through it. It's a little bit, but I think it explains things pretty well because it is very open-ended and there's not really a message to the ending. It just kind of is left open-ending. But here's what they said. We're told earlier in the film that the doubles couldn't reasonably function as doubles because they lacked a soul, and that for all the copying the government could do, they couldn't replicate that one part. Given the behavior we see from all the doubles, killing with abandon, showing no remorse over their actions, etc., that would seem to hold true. But switching Red and Adelaide leads to something far unnerving, which is that concept of a soul is a luxury provided by those who have the comfort of freedom and choice. The reason the doubles are soulless isn't because the soul couldn't be copied, but because they never had a chance at one in the first place. By swapping Red and Adelaide, we see a strong argument in favor of nurture over nature. If Red truly had no soul, then she never could have adapted to life above ground. She couldn't have expressed herself through dance, found love, or been a part of a family. Conversely, if a soul does exist, then it can just as easily be worn away by circumstance. Adelaide starts out a normal girl, but after spending decades underground with the doubles, she eventually goes insane and decides to put together a murderous uprising. Furthermore, as the movie unfolds, we see that we're not so special and not so different. The Wilson family warms up pretty easily to the violence required to survive because fear of the other is such a motivating factor. We're desperate to hold on to what's ours, and that zero-sum game is represented by the uprising of the doubles. We can't live in peace with these doubles. Only one can survive. And as we see in the Red and Adelaide relationship, there's not enough to go around. Someone has to live below and someone has to live above, but they cannot live together. Ultimately, that makes our difference with the doubles irrelevant. They want what we have, and so do we. Simply saying that one side is soulless is a cop-out. The last brutal stab in us isn't that we each have our own unique and beautiful dark side because we're all unique and beautiful in our own special way. Instead, we're shaped by the privilege of our surroundings, ones we don't get to choose. That's not to say that choices don't matter, but we should look at the luxury of who gets to have these choices in the first place. In order to have a normal existence, Red had to break the rules and steal Adelaide's life. It may be easy to chalk that up to who does and doesn't have a soul, but it'd be wiser to see who's given an opportunity and who has to take it.
Ooh, that's pretty deep.
And that's kind of the social commentary explanation that I found on Collider that was because, we know with Get Out, the Jordan Peele likes to have this kind of social commentary in what he's doing. And this one's much more heavily veiled, but I think that one nailed it pretty well.
Wow. That is really deep. There's so much about this movie. I feel like we could almost do a part 2 if we went and researched all the things. Or we could just keep this podcast going for, 6 hours as we dissect every little thing. But we're not going to do that.
Right.
Do you have any other notes on Adelaide?
I do not. That was it. And that's really kind of my main notes with her kind of cover a lot of that. That's why I felt it was good to throw that quote in that little article in there. Because her story really covers the theme of the movie.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
So that's probably about as deep as I'm going to get now. It's just going to be all the rest of my notes. We'll go character to character, and I'll just talk about, I like this thing. So that's kind of where we got the depth out of the way, I think, maybe.
Somehow I'm not expecting a lot of puns in this. Did you use them all up last week?
Yeah, probably. This movie, I don't know, it's got some funny stuff to it, but it's not something that I easily just kind of point, fun or joke around with as much because it's something that I really deeply appreciate as an art piece. And it's more fun for me to really dig into the seriousness and the meaning of it versus just have fun with it like I do with some things. Not to say that those other things I don't also really love, but it's a different format. It's kind of a different style of movie.
Definitely. I think we often talk about music as a character in some films. Mm-hmm. And the music in this film, the score and different pieces, at times reminded me a little bit of Hitchcock. some Hitchcock films. Especially like percussion and the random chanting at different times. It just, it fit really well and helped set the tone and the ambiance for everything that we got to see.
Yeah. So with that, you said Adelaide notes are kind of done. So I would move on to Gabe a little bit. Mention him. Winston Duke, who is just wonderful. Him and Lupita Nyong'o both in Black Panther together.
I know.
Man.
I know. Black Panther is my favorite Marvel movie. So it was great to see them reunited in this one.
Mm-hmm. I just love it when he shows up with the boat outside. Is like, he's kidding, right? He is not kidding. It hangs to the left. Remember that.
And then when they're sitting on the couch and he's trying to tell them, you can have the boat for all I care. And then Zora says, nobody wants the boat, Dad. She was funny. She was great. She always had something to say. I really liked that.
Yeah. And as goofy as he is, and kind of, not the toughest guy, but also he is capable.
Yeah.
Especially, he does get kind of taken over by Abraham, but he wakes up. Abraham has him in a bag on the boat going somewhere. But he's able to knock Abraham out of the boat with the bat. He does fall out as well. But Abraham is tethered to the boat, so to speak. Goes off with it. Now Abraham had communicated with another double, so sounds most likely it was the double of Josh, because that's the same sounds that Tim Heidecker was making later on when we saw him again. So
that seems to be the preferred method of communication for the tethered, because since they can't speak.
Right. So that was kind of the first little hint that it's not just the Wilson family, that there are others out there as well. Abraham is communicating. But they fall out. Abraham is swept away with the boat, and Gabe is just left floating there until, the boat hangs left all the way back to him. And then it dies again right there. Just how lucky. Except Abraham is still there on it, so unlucky. But he is able to chop him up with the propeller, so lucky again.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Meanwhile, the kids are dealing with their doppelgangers. Jason's able to trap Pluto in the closet for a little bit so he can escape, the same closet that his sister had trapped him in earlier.
Yeah.
And Zora escapes Umbre by waiting till she's distracted with the guy who doesn't want her on the car.
So creepy when Red just says, little girl, run.
Yeah.
And I'm just, And Umbre just looks back and smiles at her mother and then goes running after her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Zora talked about quitting track or not being happy with track. I'm not sure she would think about quitting now. Since running helped save her life. Yeah,
there's those little nods to the characters. Of course, Zora with the running, like you mentioned, and then Jason playing with this magic trick that's supposed to create fire the whole time and not be able to get it right. So, of course, Pluto is this just firebug, like I said. Yeah. Also with fire, Gabe does not have the best with fire. He has to deal with Tex, which is the name of the Josh doppelganger, where the flare gun idea didn't work great, but, no. good thought.
Yeah, it definitely did not go off as planned.
Boats just don't work. Of course, they're on the Crawdaddy, is where the whole family escaped, and then they deal with the stuff at the Tylers, which of course Joshua Tyler is the name of the lead singer of a band called Half Alive. So I think that's funny.
Oh, I know that band.
Yeah.
I know that band. Well, yes.
Yeah. So it's weird when I see that. But of course, Josh's boat. Of course he named his boat capital B dash yacht.
Yes, of course.
B yacht.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's perfect.
That fits.
Well, Kitty is played by the amazing Elizabeth Moss, who I know so many times covering Handmaid's Tale on House Podcastica. We've talked about over there her face. Like, she tells a story with her face. Does it again in this movie the entire time.
I have a note about that where I just said Elizabeth Moss and her face acting.
Yep. She does it.
Dahlia watching Gabe and Tex fighting on the boat, and then she screams and then laughs maniacally. All of it while being completely silent. No sound out of her mouth whatsoever, other than a few little breaths. It's so impressive.
No, so good. So good.
But yeah, I have, let's see, another little note. Yeah, about that. Because Gabe, I guess, does manage to take care of Tex while they're fighting on the biatch.
Yes.
But it takes place off screen, so we don't really get to see how he takes him out. But we do get Dahlia's face reaction we talked about, which, if you notice, though, yeah, she's screaming at first, but it would have ended with Tex dying, and then that's when the joy and the laughter takes over. Which then, remember back to when they're sitting on the beach and Kitty and Adelaide are talking, and she says that she thinks about murdering Josh from time to time. Maybe not as much of a joke as it seemed. Because those emotions and things, a lot of like the little characteristics and emotions of the characters are heightened in their doppelganger forms.
Yes.
So maybe she wasn't joking as much as we thought she was. With how much she hates her husband.
I don't think that the tethered, they might be a family, but I don't know how close and connected they really are compared to the actual families. Like the Wilsons and the Tylers. Although the Tylers were definitely an interesting family.
Yeah.
Vodka o'clock, I think, is the preferred time of day.
Yeah.
And poor Kitty has such a hard time. She asks, Ophelia to call the police. Instead, it plays...
Playing Fuck the Police by NWA.
I'm like...
So good.
This is great. It just reminds me of when I'm visiting my nieces and they'll ask Alexa to play a song and it will not play the right song. It will end up, they're trying to get something from a Disney movie and it ends up saying that they're playing something by Eminem. Nope. Yeah.
There's some great, it's one of the scariest, it's not really scariest, but goriest scenes and more shocking and thrilling scenes, of course, is the deaths of the Tyler family. But there is a lot of humor that also is around that with the music and it's not very good vibrations going on.
No,
in that house at the time. And then of course it all ends with Gabe coming back with boats are done. I am done with boats. Don't blame me.
Yeah. So they decide that they can take the Tyler's vehicle, except they left the keys in the house.
Yeah. Which again, sorry to go back on something a little bit, but another one of those little things to notice about Kitty, besides her reaction to Tex, she doesn't kill Adelaide.
No.
She has her tied up, has the scissors to her face, and then goes over and cuts her own face. And it's one of those little hints, again, that she recognizes her as another tethered.
Yeah.
Or maybe you could take it either or maybe both. So she recognizes her as another tethered, or she knows, no, you're Red's.
Yeah.
Because Red organized this whole thing, and we're leaving you for her.
Yeah. But she does go after Zora, who is saved by Jason, and this sturdy statue that he uses to hit her in the head with.
Yeah, you got a geode.
Yeah.
Their weapons of choice, the golf club and the geode. Which golf club was a great choice, great pick.
Oh, Zora was great with that. I'm thinking maybe she might want to take up softball or fencing or something that requires, some agility and strength, because she was really good with that golf club.
Yeah.
She was smashing it.
Yeah, and so you mentioned, having to go take their car and leave, goes back in, has to finish off one of the daughters that was laying there on the table in front of them while they watched TV. Guess she eventually just got up, which leads to, the last little funny moment surrounding this whole thing is with the whole family arguing over their kill counts, which
I loved that. I thought it was great. I killed the twins, and Adelaide is very quick to say, no, I just took care of the other one, so no.
Mm-hmm. One, and two.
Yeah. But she's still handcuffed. And let's just talk about this. Adelaide is handcuffed throughout most of this movie.
Yeah.
And she still manages to take people out and be badass. Man. So Zora gets to drive.
Finally. That's all she's wanted. This whole movie was to drive.
Yes. And she finally gets the opportunity to, because Umbre is standing in front of the car a little ways ahead. And they want her to back up, and Zora is not having any of that.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, nope, hold on.
Which the extreme acrobatic skills of Umbre, where she just kind of smoothly avoids getting hit and crawls up on top. It's this perfect timing thing. But Zora's pretty smart. It's a whole different level of defensive driving, right?
It really is. She knows when to brake and when to accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
Which ends up with Umbre in a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Bent in half. But backwards, basically.
Yeah. She's gone. She's done. That's it.
Yep, it's over.
There's no coming back from that one.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so next, I guess, would be Jason. If I have any other notes about him, I've talked about how, Evan had to have had so much fun playing the Pluto role and doing all of the different stuff. But yeah, just how creepy they are mirroring each other in so many ways. Talked about the face stuff, but even going back to Zora and Umbre doing that same thing with the car that she ends up crawling on top, but looking at each other through the mirror, through the windows of the cars they walk. And yeah, just a lot of tension. And all of that. But Jason gets his big moment where, as they're getting away, before he's taken by Red, they're blocked. The Wilsons are blocked by a trap where their car has been left in the middle of the street on fire, causing them to stop. And Pluto is behind it with his plan to ignite the car that the family is in while they're in it. Jason realizes this and uses his mirroring connection that we had established he had with Pluto to have him walk backwards into the fire, which is a little sad.
It was.
I had a little soft spot in my heart for that creepy fucking Pluto. As creepy as he was, I still liked him.
Well, even Adelaide was having trouble, watching him go backwards into that. But by doing that, backed right into where Red was hiding.
Yeah.
Basically up against a car that was the same color as the creepy red jumpsuit that they all were wearing.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's notes on characters. Try to see if I have anything else. Not really. Do you have anything?
We know that the tethered... Red was very clear that the tethered want to take their time. They've been waiting for the day, and she calls it the untethering. That was something. I thought the story that she told about being the shadow was really impactful. I'm not going to recite it. And I thought it was interesting that when Red is dying, she starts to try to whistle the itsy bitsy spider. Which, of course, goes all the way back to the beginning, which, it ties it all together.
Yeah. Another one of those thematic elements that Jordan Peele threw in that you'd have to kind of go, there's a lot of deeper meaning to spiders and rabbits.
Yeah.
And the number 11. They're all in there, and you just kind of, to really dig into them, we don't have that kind of time, but I definitely say look into some of those things because they're really cool.
Yeah. At the beginning of the movie, there were a few when the ad is playing on the TV, that you could see a couple of movies on the side, like VHS tapes. One of them is a movie called Chud, which I love. It's an old 80s movie with Daniel Stern, and it's about people who live underground.
Uh-huh.
And one of the other movies is The Goonies, which also people go underground. So I thought, it's really clever to kind of put those together like that. And the only other thing I have is at the end of the movie when they're getting ready to go to credits, they're showing us all of the tethered holding hands in Hands Across America, and it even goes right out into the woods. And it started to make me think that it looked kind of like the Great Wall of China. Like it's just going like in the middle of nowhere, like way out there they're everywhere. I wonder if the Wilsons will even find anyone else, that's alive.
How far did it spread before?
Yeah.
And guess maybe keeps spreading. Again, we're not left with a very concrete ending, but that's okay.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, movie opens with them talking about thousands of miles of tunnels beneath the continental U.S., which is, again, why going to Mexico was so important. It just makes me curious, I guess.
Yeah.
Thinking about tunnels.
Opens with foreshadowing about the underground tunnels, and then it just lets us forget about it until it comes up again.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Of course, then the Vision Quest with the Native American imagery that, again, just another tiny little social commentary thing that back when Addie was a little girl, and it's this whole Vision Quest with Native American, and then when they go back in 2019 as a family and they've changed it to like a Merlin's
Forest
thing because, Merlin's Forest, because they realize maybe the native imagery is not the most progressive thing to do.
No.
So they had changed it. I thought that was kind of a fun little nod.
Yeah.
But of course the tagline stays the same, which is find yourself.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what she did.
Yes. Well, she went into that tunnel trying to find her son the second time. She did find herself the first time too.
Yeah.
Man, this was a really good one to talk about. It's been a lot of fun breaking it down.
I have one more article note, not as long, a little thing. I had to include this because I thought it was cool. Of course, the Bible verse, we see the guy a couple of times. The young Addie walks past him, sees him holding his Jeremiah 11:11. We see him again dead as his tethered doppelganger had taken him out. So the first one, and then we see his tethered doppelganger in the flashback with 11:11 on his forehead. And so I have a little thing about that. Jeremiah 11:11. Just read it. King James Version. Get all about it. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon them, which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them.
Ooh.
So again, Jordan Peele doesn't like to talk about too many things, doesn't like to leave things out here, but I did find an Entertainment Weekly interview with Lupita Nyong'o, where she talks about how this verse relates to the movie in her opinion. So she says, Jordan's exploring this notion that right now we're preoccupied globally with the other. The monster that is the other culture, the other country, the other political faction, the other religion, the other gender. And what about the monster that sometimes comes in the shape of the man in the mirror and the darkness that we humans are prone to and quite naturally inhibit? Lupita Nyong'o continues, sometimes the darkness goes unattended to, unrecognized, ignored. And it is when that happens that we project it out externally and it becomes the destruction that we then have to contend with.
Wow. That is insightful.
Yeah.
Very insightful. Now I just feel like after we finish recording, I need to go do even more digging.
Right. There's so many things you can look into in this movie.
It's like, oh, not every movie is like that. I mean, some movies that we cover, when we're done, I'm just like, okay, that was great. But then there are ones like this one that make me want to dig deeper and try to uncover things. I just want Jordan Peele to say a little more, to share a little more.
Right.
And he won't.
Nope.
Oh, God. No. That's his next movie, Pake. Good job.
It is. I'm so excited.
Me too. Comes out in July. Very excited about that.
I haven't been to the theaters again in a while. I think that one's a definite theater run.
Yeah, for sure. His movies have to be seen in the theater the first time that you watch them. And
I didn't see Get Out in theaters because I didn't realize what a frickin' visionary he was going to be with his debut. But after watching Get Out, then immediately, as soon as I knew about Us, I was like, well, that's an opening night to go for me. 100%.
Yeah. I don't think anyone anticipated that he was going to really break through with his, very first film. That it was going to be as clever and well written and well acted, and the whole packaging for the movie was great. I have watched the trailer for Nope, and I can tell you this, it doesn't give anything away.
Cool.
Not a single thing.
You know I haven't watched it.
I know you have not watched it. It doesn't give anything away. And I probably will not watch another trailer for it, even if one comes out, because
it's got Stephen Yeun in it, right?
It does.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So,
it's going to be great.
Yay.
It's going to be great. And based on what I did see in the trailer, it's definitely a Run for Your Lives movie. So we will cover it. And you know how much we love covering new films.
Yes.
That's what
especially new films from directors that we love.
Yes. I want Edgar Wright to do another dark movie.
Mm-hmm.
As I want to cover it. Because he's just... Again, another one on this list of amazing directors.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our coverage and notes about the movie. But I do know that you have brought some fun production notes and things. Lots of fun trivia that you always find that I love to hear.
I always have fun doing this. I dig around. I read articles, Wikipedia, IMDb. I dig until I find what I think are the coolest things. So I'll just get started. So Jordan Peele did say that one of his inspirations for this film was the Twilight Zone episode Mirror Image, which I saw a long time ago, but I don't remember anything about it. He shared 11 movies with the cast in order for them to have, quote, a shared language when filming.
11, again.
11.
That number.
Yes. And these are the movies he shared. Jaws, Dead Again, The Shining, The Babadook, It Follows, A Tale of Two Sisters, which I believe is Japanese, The Birds, Martyrs, the original, which I believe is French, Funny Games, Let the Right One In, and The Sixth Sense. All very different.
Those are very different, but a lot of great ones. I have not seen all of those, but a lot of them. And a lot of those are very Run for Your Lives movies. Some we've covered.
Yeah.
Some we should cover at some point.
Yeah. I know. And we haven't. I think I know some movies that are going on the list. Mm-hmm. Or I'll verify that they're on our list. Funny enough, he didn't have The Exorcist on this list. And the reason why I say that is because when the way that Pluto was like crawling around reminded me of a scene from The Exorcist with Reagan crawling on the ceiling, kind of like that. So, yeah. So, several of the important scenes take place on the Santa Cruz Beach boardwalk, which is like the 1987 film The Lost Boys. They didn't have to do very much to the boardwalk as there are a lot of games and rides going back to the 1910s. There is an underground tunnel system, but it's used mostly for storage or shelter. There's no Hall of Mirrors. And during the filming at the beach, the boardwalk, rides were all filled with dummies, and then CGI was used to create moving people. Well, we didn't talk about it, but it was really strange when they were showing the underground and the people, and then people on the rides above, the stuff that they were doing and the spinning around and being on the, that was real strange looking.
Yeah.
Get Out was carved into the sides of the Hall of Mirror entrance. The overhead shot of the Wilsons driving to their vacation home, along with the synchronized speech and the twins' mannerisms, is a reference to The Shining. Jason Blum, who produced Get Out, was asked to produce this one as well. His low-budget production company, Blumhouse, could not come up with the necessary budget. Universal Pictures hired him as a producer outside of his company on a one-time basis.
I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, because there's people that come on different sides of this. I feel like I'm kind of glad that the Blumhouse logo and name doesn't show up on this movie.
Me too.
Because it doesn't always instill a lot of confidence in a movie for me. Yeah. There are some Blumhouse productions that have been incredible. But for everyone that is, there's 3 that are not good at all. And so it's a toss up with when he's on board. So I'm kind of glad that it didn't work out, because it would have made me, I mean, the movie would have still been great, but it would have made me a little more cautious about it.
Yeah. I feel the very same way about A24. I do. But I think we figured out, we had a discussion once, and that it was Ari Aster. I guess that was my issue. So the fast food that the family eats is called Copper Pots, which is a nod to Chester Copperpot, the legendary treasure hunter in the Goonies. The presence of white rabbits, the Hall of Mirrors, and the red jumpsuits worn by the tethered are all references to Alice in Wonderland. The Hall of Mirrors in particular represents the through the looking glass, while the red suits represent the Red Queen, and who's the villain of Alice in Wonderland. The son's name Jason is a reference to Friday the 13th's villain Jason, who also wears a mask. The movie was shipped to cinemas under the title Deep Cuts. The doppelgangers taunting and playing with the Wilsons while they're on the couch, simply terrified, is a reference to the movie Funny Games, which, have you ever seen that?
I actually have not. I know what it is, and I know a lot about it. And I think it's the fact that I know a lot about it that makes me not watch it yet.
Yeah.
I do want to sit and watch it at some point, but I know it's a rough one.
It's incredibly rough. I've seen it once. I have not watched it since because it is traumatizing. The scissors used by the doppelgangers are a reference to A Tale of Two Sisters, which is the weapon that they used. It's also a reference to Dead Again, which features a pair of antique scissors, which I've seen Dead Again. I believe Nicole Kidman was in it. It's one of her earliest films in the early 90s. I think Kenneth Branagh was also in that. The fact, as you talked about this, Peg, that the tethered chiefly use scissors as a weapon is a great representation of the tethered themselves. They're 2 identical pieces bound together to create one whole, and also it's a way of separating.
Mm-hmm.
So my final note is Lupita Nyong'o based the voice of Adelaide's doppelganger counterpart Red on a neurological disorder called spasmodic dysphonia, which causes involuntary spasms of the larynx. She was inspired to do so after reading a line in the script which stated that Red had not used her voice in many years.
She did an incredible job with that.
She did.
Vocal performance and everything. It's just, man.
Yeah.
Impeccable.
Yeah. There's not enough appreciation for the acting and what cast members will do for a role. And I feel like in this movie in particular, there has to be an appreciation for what all of the actors did, not only in playing their main parts, but in playing their tethered parts as well.
Yeah. It's so good.
Oh, man.
Speaking of that, I now that our feedback phone is ringing, I hope we have some really good feedback for this one.
Me too.
Fingers crossed.
Better answer
Pick that up and see. Yeah. All right, a little bit of feedback this week. First one, in Run for Your Lives fashion, going back to last week's episode, talking about Ready or Not. Daphne, why don't you take that one and see what our friend had to say?
All right, it's from Tony.
Yeah.
Hi, Tony. Tony says, welcome back. I just listened to this episode tonight. A fun one to start your new season off. We thought so too.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll go ahead and give it a rewatch because it has been a while. Also looking forward to Us. I'm disappointed you won't be covering Midsommar. I really think that one has a lot to unpack. A really great movie about cults and how they recruit and brainwash. I have watched it multiple times and find it fascinating, but some scenes are certainly cringe for sure. Agreed. And I did communicate with Tony on Twitter and shared my love of The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man she had watched was the Nicolas Cage version. And I talked to her a little bit about the original, so I hope she does get to check that out. I also said that if people requested it more, maybe we would have to cover Midsommar, but since both of us are really not on the Midsommar bandwagon...
It would be interesting. I'm not opposed to, because I don't think I hated it as much as you seem to, but it's not a favorite of mine. But I have a lot of good friends of mine who are obsessed with it and love it. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I would not be opposed to going back and rewatching at some point and really trying to break it down and look into it and see. Because, podcasting sometimes does turn things around. Sometimes it doesn't, depending on the movies we're covering.
Yeah.
But there have been times that it does. So it could be an interesting little experiment to see how we feel about that sometimes.
I'd have to be in the right frame of mind. It's not one I want to cover next week.
Yeah. But eventually, it might happen. So never say never, Tony. And then with this week's movie, Us, which we kind of had a little bit from Tony, so she said at least she's excited to see and hear about it. So hopefully we get more thoughts about Us next week from you, Tony. Mm-hmm. We'll see. Let us know what you thought when you went back and watched it. But Alma Contreras did have some thoughts about it. Says, I've only watched this movie once at the theater, and I found it really disturbing, and I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. Which you have now. And so hopefully you enjoyed our thoughts and breakdown and kind of some stuff. Because, it is very disturbing. But I love this movie a lot, as you heard when we talked about it. So,
yeah. I hope, Alma, that you will write in and let us know if listening to us helped clarify anything that you were questioning about the movie. So if you would like to submit feedback like Alma or Tony, you can visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Tweet at us on Twitter at RFYL Podcast. You can message us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. And speaking of sharing the love, I can go ahead and give a couple of shout outs to what's going on in the podcast universe around us. As always, my other podcast, Strange Indeed, I'm actually not really doing a lot on necessarily right now. I might jump in on there. We'll see. I'm binging. I'm trying to catch up. I've been so behind. But, because, soon, coming up very soon, we'll have 2 things to look forward to on Strange Indeed. The first one, like I said, I might not be a part of, unless I catch up, because I've been binging, and that is Ozark, the second half of the final season of season 4. Will be, I say we will, as far as Strange Indeed will be covering. I know Wendy is kind of taking the helm on that, giving her the opportunity on that. And then I know Rima, I think, is caught up and we'll be talking with her. And then she'll be pulling in some other friends and stuff of ours who are really into Ozark to guest with. And then if I catch up before the ending of it, then if I feel like it, I might jump in on an episode or two. We'll see. Like I said, I've been binging, catching back up on it. I love that show so much. It's just one that I always end up like putting down and then forgetting to go back to. So, because it's heavy, because it's a hard show to binge, because it is intense. And so it's one of those shows that you watch like 2 or 3 episodes, you're like, I need a break for a little bit. And so
that sounds like The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. It's very, very similar as far as like it can get really intense and a lot of emotional and heavy stuff. But it is good. So if you're a fan of Ozark, because again, April 29th is when the back half of season 4 starts, or all comes out because it's Netflix. So they're dropping the back half on the 29th. And then I would say, assume that they'll be covering it pretty soon after that. And also, I think they recorded maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever you're hearing this. Rima and Wendy are doing a recap of seasons 1 through 4A as kind of to catch everybody up. So that should be out like within this next week, within a few days. So definitely check that out. And then, of course, Stranger Things comes back May 24th, maybe?
Yeah,
something.
It is.
So, and then me and Rima will definitely 100% be covering that when that starts happening. And we'll probably be pulling in some guest co-hosts and stuff on that, too. We'll have some fun with that. So
yeah, it's such a fun show.
Ozark coming up soon, and Stranger Things after that. So Stranger Deed will be kicking up some fun stuff very soon. Keep your eyes peeled on it.
I heard a rumor the Umbrella Academy is coming back.
Yeah.
Soon-ish. I'm excited about that.
Yes, and then we don't have an official date, but we have an official that it's the final season, but Lock and Key will be ending on season 3, and I have a feeling that will be at the end of this year as well.
Yeah.
So, good
Lots
stuff.
Lots of great series are ending, so
yeah.
It's going to be a difficult year to say goodbye to some great TV.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of great TV, because that's what we like to cover a lot of here is different TV and movies specifically here, but in our podcast universe, a lot of TV show stuff. So good friends over on House Podcastica and the Yellow Jackets WTF podcast. Still doing the rewatch of the season 1 episodes of Yellow Jackets.
We are recording this weekend, and it will be out next week. Episode 9, Doom Coming. Myself, Jason, and our friend Alex will be on with us to talk about that episode, which was one of the best, if not the best episode of the season. So it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about, break down.
Awesome. And then if you are a fan of Moon Knight, like I am, and I know Daphne is, and anybody with any sense of any should be, it's so good. So freaking good. Oh my God, this week was... I'm not going to say anything. Not going to give anything away, but man.
Oscar
MCU's doing some fun stuff, man. Oscar Isaac is incredible. Yeah. Watch Moon Knight, people. It's so good.
We're definitely a Moon Knight house here.
But if you are a fan of Moon Knight, good for you. Pat yourself on the back for having a love of great television. And then check out some great podcasts to hear people that are really awesome break that show down. You can check that out on Panels to Pixels with Mark and Steve. You can check that out on TV Podcast Industries. And you can also check that out on House Podcastica or the Moon Knight cast. Jason and Kirk doing it there. A lot of places to get your Moon Knight fix. A lot of good podcasts there. And I did mention TV Podcast Industries, which is also covering season 2 of Picard. So if you're a Star Trek fan, if you're a Trekkie, get over to TV Podcast Industries for your Picard fix.
They're always busy over there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. They're just putting out all the stuff and doing so good with all of it. And then next week on Watched It in the 80s podcast, so not out now, but be on the lookout for it. Damien will be covering Das Boot.
Yes, he and Jerry have recorded it. It should be out next week.
And that is it for other podcasts. But if you want to know what's going on here on this one that you're currently listening to next week, what are we going to serve up for them?
Well, next week we are drawn into a world where technology is not our pal. When a robot apocalypse occurs during their cross-country adventure, An ordinary, dysfunctional family is forced to embrace their differences and be the unlikely heroes to save Earth. We are covering the 2021 animated film, The Mitchells vs. the Machines.
Oscar-nominated animated
Oscar-nominated film. So much fun. I had never seen it, which is the case sometimes on this podcast. And I love it because that's one of the things that has happened is I'm getting exposed to movies I've never seen. And even though when we first started the podcast, it felt like I was introducing you to most of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling like I'm getting my fair share now, and I like it. It's broadening my horizons. So I am enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, that one's a great one, so definitely check that out. And again, it is an animated film, so it will be family-friendly, kid-friendly. So if you got little ones around, you should be able to at least listen to it out loud, and they shouldn't hear any new words.
Exactly. We keep it PG when it comes to podcasts about animated films.
Yeah, because that way, if there are kids who are big fans of these shows or these movies, a lot of kids don't really want to sit and listen to a podcast. They've got much better things to do, and I don't blame them. But hey, if there's any parents of kids who are really big into this movie, I'd love to know what your kids think about this. Like, because we did talk about a lot of the adult themes that are in this movie and a lot of the more mature themes that are in this movie. But I would love to hear feedback from just a kid's point of view on what they love about this thing. So there's some homework. I don't know if it will pay off, but if we have any parents out there listening, let us know what your kids think about Mitchell versus the Machines.
We'd like to know. It'd be cool. And with that, we have reached the end of another terrifying yet fun episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.